Hey everybody, it's me Joe, this is Felipe, and this is the Rundown Mariners Postgame show, and we're back to you after a day off. We went to the Mariners game yesterday, got back a little late, the light rail was packed.
They lost. We were
Also
bummed.
lost and we were bummed. But on a bright note, we did get to meet Jordan Diaz, got his Columbia WBC cards signed. Columbia.
Colombia.
Que
viva Colombia.
But yeah, that was a bright spot. Really thought that they were gonna pull it out there in the ninth inning because you have hope, but they just couldn't get it done. But that's okay. Can't win every single game. Mariners turned it around with a win today, and they're back even with the Astros for the lead in the AL West. What did we see today at the game?
I think a little bit of similar type of game, except that the outcome was different from last night, Wednesday, when they lost. Again, we're seeing the effects of not having Julio, who's out with a bruised foot. Basically, he's kind of day to day. I think he should be fine. I saw his little post of the Rum DNC stuff, and he looked fine. So
okay. Yeah,
I think he should be good.
Yeah.
I think it's more precautionary than anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, a little bit of what I'm seeing is they're struggling at that back end of the lineup, which was kind of my fear going as we get closer to the playoffs. Is how much can we ride the hot bats of the lower part of the depth chart, which includes Caballero, Dylan Moore, Haggerty, Canzone, and Rojas.
Yeah.
And they're struggling a little bit. Which isn't a surprise because that's kind of what they're not going to be hot forever. That's not the kind of player they are, but that does concern me moving forward.
Right.
But I think the big guns again stepped up when they needed to, which is what you expect. Yeah. And J.P. Crawford was able to get the 2-run single in the seventh to put us up, and then good signs from Munoz, 1, 2, 3 in the ninth.
Yeah.
Again, so looks like he's settling into that role a little bit, which is really nice to see because I kind of feel like for Mariners fans was a big concern, especially after the Seawald trade. So that's kind of like back-to-back saves now where he's really been nice. Yeah. So hopefully that's a trend moving forward.
Very little drama between both Brash and Munoz today. They combined only allowing one base runner, Munoz not allowing any at all. So it's really good seeing them get settled in at a crunch time position. One person that you did mention, J.P. Crawford, he's been really good this year. Kind of bubbling under the surface, really. Not getting as much.
Super under the radar guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even for me, you were mentioning some of his stats in terms of league-wide stuff, and I was like, wow, he's really kind of jumped. And I would say, he's been great, more than really good. So.
Yeah, no, really, J.P. Crawford currently 4th in the AL in on base percentage, which is really what you want to look at for a good, solid leadoff guy, right? And he's really come into his own when we look at, a lot of Mariners fans kind of calling for Dipoto to kind of open up the pocketbook and go out for one of those prime time shortstops that were in free agency. Man, I'm glad he didn't, because JP has really come into his own, and I think we're seeing kind of what JP is capable of throughout his whole career now. He's really coming into his own this is probably what we're going to see at his peak.
I think a 280 batter kind of. Yeah. I don't think he's 300. I really don't.
Yeah.
But I think like a 280, and obviously he has his defensive skills that he flashes the leather every single day. He's always making a play here and there, and he's such a locker room guy.
Yes.
I think that he's probably the glue of this clubhouse. I think after Kyle Seager kind of left, that just handed the baton to JP, and this is. As much as it's Julio's team, I think it really also, behind the scenes, it's JP's team too.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that interview with Jen Mueller after that game, that last game of Kyle Seager's, where you said, he passed the baton to JP. I think a lot of Mariners fans were kind of skeptical about
Yeah.
that. I think they were saying, well, no, Kelnick's coming up, JP's around the corner, we have Haniger,
We got
right?
Julio coming.
Yeah, and so I think a lot of people were skeptical about that, but seeing his passion, he was really crying at.
Yeah, he had his emotion.
Yeah,
He
his
was
heart
very
on his
emotional.
sleeve, yeah.
So
Yeah, so and I really do think this is JP's team as far as, Julio being the face, but I think in a lot of ways JP is probably the heart and soul of this team.
yeah, it kind of reminds me. I don't know if any Soprano fans out there, but Julio really takes the Tony Soprano role, and he's the big guy. But still, his number two, his so loyal, makes all the right decisions. But he's in the background, and he has a line. And I forget what season it is, because I like being number two. I think number two really suits me, and that's JP for me.
Yeah.
He's the number two. He's the leader in the locker room and everything, but he's not the big. It's my team.
Yeah.
It's his face. But I think without him, this team is not as good as they are.
Oh yeah,
for sure,
definitely. And I think we'll see career highs in a lot of regards for JP. He's already got career highs in walks and home runs, like we saw. Finally hitting
a lot of leadoff home runs.
Yeah, a lot of leadoff home runs, double-digit home runs for him this year. So hopefully, and he's 28 years old. He's been around in the league for actually quite a few years now. So he's kind of got that veteran presence about him, that veteran experience.
Yeah.
And so I think that's going to help a lot of the young guys going forward, as we see this team probably making a few playoff runs in a row in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's got a little bit of mix of both. He's still young enough to be youth, but he's got enough years under his belt to be, again, be a guide and be a mentor for these younger guys as we continue to, bolster this team for championship runs for years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's take a look at talking about championship runs in years to come. Let's look at the playoff odds in the AL West right now. So as we said earlier, the Mariners and Astros dead heat as far as standings go. One advantage that the Mariners do have is that they have the winning percentage in their favor. So they have 2 games less played compared to the Astros. So the Astros are currently 77-58, Mariners 76-57. But as we look going forward, the Astros have a favorable strength of schedule at .493 compared to .517 with the Mariners. The playoff percentage, the Mariners sit at 86.3% and the Astros at 94.5%. And Fangraphs do slightly favor the Astros to win the division at 53%. So as far as the strength of schedule goes, we know who they face in the last 10 games, including that crucial series against the Dodgers as well. Before that, what do you see going forward?
It'll be interesting for sure. I think the Mariners are gonna have to keep pace with the Astros. I think the Astros are gonna remain. They're still good, right? They're still beyond good.
Yeah.
There are little struggles in the last week or so. I think that's just how baseball works sometimes. I don't think that's really their identity. I still think they are a very strong team. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do win this division. But yeah, it's still really close. Astros and Mariners tied. Texas, they fell today, so they were down a game down. Houston's on a 5-game winning streak. They just swept Boston. Boston's not an easy team either.
No.
They're 7-3 in their last 10. They've got the Yankees next. So the Yankees, I feel like they've been playing a little bit better too. They're not a playoff contender, but they're not a rollover team either. So that I think that should be a good series.
Yeah.
The last time they played was earlier in August. They split 2-2. So that was a tough series that they played against them. Going to Texas, they lost in extras against the Mets today, which is the team that the Mariners are going to be playing next.
Yeah.
They did go 2 of 3 against the Mets. They're 3-7 in their last, and they continue to struggle. They're kind of fumbling here and there, so it'll be interesting to see if they can keep pace or do they continue to spiral kind of out of control.
Yeah.
They play the Twins, which they actually played the Twins last last weekend, the weekend series, and they were 1-3 against the Twins. So they struggled against Minnesota last time out, which was only a few days ago.
Yeah.
So we'll see if they are able to rebound back, or are they going to struggle again. Yeah. So kind of some big, we talk as we get closer to the end of the season. Every series is big, but it's just kind of interesting the teams that they're playing.
Yeah.
And then the Mariners have got the Mets, like I mentioned, they've got me curious a little bit how they're going to play out the rest of the year. They're in last in the NL East. They're not officially, but they're really completely out of any playoff conversation. But they've got some playmakers on there, and flying to New York, East Coast, that always makes a difference. We'll see how the Mariners fare. Yeah. I'm confident the pitching will show up. It's really how the hitting depth is what concerns me about the Mariners.
Yeah.
Going forward.
Yeah. So, that's really interesting because on Fangraphs right now it shows that today's game, the final score shows the Mets winning 5 to Seattle's 4. So, I wonder if that's going to be the real outcome here, but
yeah, I mean, it really depends on how we show up offensively, especially that second half of the lineup. Can they get on base?
Yes.
Right. Can they be patient? I think one of the things that you and I noticed in the game on Wednesday night, or the Tuesday night, sorry, was the bottom half of the order was not, as the game went later on, and we pressed for runs and we pressed for base runners, they got less and less patience. Right? We saw Canzone swinging at 3 straight breaking balls that were way out of the zone.
Yeah.
Rojas came in also. He got the base hit, but early in his at bat, he was also, swinging at stuff he shouldn't be swinging at, not swinging at things that he should be swinging at, and you kind of see Dylan Moore fall into that as well. It's that press that I've got to do something, instead of being patient and seeing some pitches and going with pitches, being a smart batter that will hurt us. And again, like I've said this a few times. That's my biggest fear about this team is that those guys, once the innings get later, it seems like the pressure gets on top of them, and they start trying to be the big hero, get the big hit the home run that gets us back in the game, instead of just let's see what we get, come up with a plan. It didn't seem like there was a real plan at the plate.
It seems like they have these stretches where they have really good plate discipline, where they're putting in those good at bats, they're fouling off pitches, they're protecting the plate, they're taking the pitches that they should take, and then eventually it's not a matter of if, it's really a matter of when that stereotypical lack of plate discipline that the Mariners have will finally rear its head. And it seems that in those close games that it does happen in crunch time. So like you said, it's tough. It's really tough for a team like this, a really young team that is playing for a lot of them their first playoff contention. Right. And so going into that, there are some guys currently on waivers right now, as we saw the Angels. They put some guys on waivers, and the Yankees even put a player on waivers. Do you think there's somebody out there right now that we could get that could be the answer?
Yeah, maybe. I know I've seen a lot of talk about Harrison Bader.
Yeah.
I like Grichuk over in LA, and it's interesting. Let's talk about that for a second. I know the Angels just put 5 or 6 guys on waivers, and most of those guys were either free agent acquisitions in the offseason or ones they traded at the deadline.
Yeah.
Right. And I've seen on I've been on Twitter and everything how frustrated Angels fans are with their organization, and I would be right there with them if I was an Angels fan. I mean, you have Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, two of the best probably players that we'll see in our lifetimes. and they really went for it at the deadline, and everything has since then collapsed. And it doesn't seem like they have quite a future plan. I remember I told you I predicted they're not going to sell Ohtani.
You did.
I said they're not going to sell Ohtani. I know how this Angels front office has been for kind words and just not smart. That's not the words I used,
No,
but
it's not.
But they're just not smart. And I said they're gonna bank on this hot streak that they have been, which shocked me. I didn't think that the Angels were that good to be even contending here, which we've seen they're not.
Yeah.
They're going to keep Ohtani. They're going to hope that they get into the playoffs somehow, and it's going to blow up all in their face, and Ohtani's going to walk.
Yeah.
And they're going to get nothing. There's no future there now. And now they're selling everything.
Yeah.
They have nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were, I really would trade Trout at this point.
You kind of have to, because, they have one of the worst farm systems in the league.
Oh, completely depleted.
Depleted. Absolutely. What a great word for that. And, they have a lot of these rental guys, and their payroll is already pretty high. What is there left for them other than a complete teardown? Really, Ohtani is really going to walk. Last offseason, he already talked about how frustrated he was being in LA for the Angels. So I really don't see there being any chance he resigns with LA, especially now with his injury. I think a lot of teams will now, try to go out and get him on a premium, maybe less, definitely less than what he would have gotten paid if he didn't get injured. But I think now there are a lot more teams in contention for him than there was 2 or 3 weeks ago.
And I'll make a hot take here.
Okay.
Next year, Angels are going to end up lower than the Athletics.
You think so? Okay.
I think Angels will they'll lose Ohtani.
Yeah.
They might even surprise us and trade Trout, but they're going to be so depleted talent-wise. And Athletics have good young talent.
They do.
They do.
Yeah.
And they're just going to get more because they're the worst team.
Yeah.
Draft-wise next year. They're only going to get a little better. I do think that Oakland will get a little better next year.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I actually, personally, as far as managers go, I do like Mark Kotsay. I think he's a good guy. He's a motivator, and he's a pretty good... he does pretty well with the talent that he has. I can't say the same about Phil Nevin.
I feel like, and at least as in Pacific Northwest, I feel like most Mariner fans, if we've watched enough games against the Mariners, don't like him.
No.
and I would not be shocked around the league that he's not a fan favorite for most guys.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. I just don't like your face.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I just don't like how you manage your team.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I'm not sorry to say it, but moving on from the A's, let's look at the upcoming series with the Mets. The first game, we have David Peterson on the bump for the Mets. This year, he has pitched 84 innings, started 16 games. He's got a 3-7 record with a 5.23 ERA. So we're going through that stretch where we're not seeing a lot of good quality pitchers. But the last couple games, we haven't seen that many runs either. So I'm hoping that we can start getting the offense going against these guys, because we will really need it in the last month of the season.
And we made Waldachuk look really good on Tuesday.
He
had a no-hitter going into
the fourth
inning, and we really only had 2 hits into the ninth. So it's kind of a little bit typical Mariners fashion, but hopefully they can avoid those days a little bit more. But we have such good pitching that I think we'll be in every game. It's just whether can we get past a run or two.
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of hard. I think they were a little dejected after, Kirby getting that late scratch, and then all of a sudden Julio is now out.
And then
really
France
late,
comes out in the third.
France comes out, so you have two of the better players, the more veteran guys that are now out, and you have guys stepping in, and all of a sudden the vibe definitely changes.
Yeah, the like you said, the vibe really felt off that game, and then again, you see how vulnerable this lineup is when you do take out a guy like Julio.
Yeah.
Even giving Teoscar a rest every once in a while, you see how this lineup just kind of goes a little downhill in terms of production wise.
Yeah, you could really feel it. Even like you said, when you pull one guy out, it really feels like the lineup doesn't really pack as much of a punch.
Well, and especially we noticed that when they announced the lineups to the stadium, it was. And now number 44 center fielder Julio Rodriguez, and everybody's running, and then when they run on the field, and I remember
Julio's
I was like, that doesn't look like Julio. What the heck happened? Where I thought he was playing, and so I thought, oh, maybe we read wrong and he's DH today for some reason, and no, he wasn't, and then it was Dylan Moore instead.
Yeah, so we'd like to see them really catch their stride against some of these guys, because we're going to see a lot of really good pitching against the Dodgers, the Astros, and with Texas.
Well, and the Reds are no rollover either.
Right. So we really have a tough stretch going. And Logan Gilbert starts for the Mariners. He's got 26 games start, a 12-5 win-loss record, and a 3.66 ERA. We'll likely see him continue his success against the Mets, I think.
Yeah, should be a good series. I predict 2 out of 3.
I think so. I think 2 out of 3 would be a good place to continue our that streak as far as series that we've won.
And 2 out of 3 Mariners.
Yes.
Just make that sure. Just make that clear.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm really hoping for a sweep here, mostly because we're going to be going against such a tough stretch at the end of the season.
And Tampa also is another team that's coming up too.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm hoping for 3. I think it would be good going into New York and getting 2.
Yeah, I think 2 out of 3 is reasonable. Again, like I said, sweep always nice.
Yeah.
But I think 2 out of 3 is pretty reasonable for this team.
So do you have a prediction for the score tomorrow?
Or they're off tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Off tomorrow, Friday.
Yeah.
I really think it'll be more along the lines of, I'm thinking 6-3, 5-2 Mariners.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it'll be a 1-run game. I think they'll get a little bit of separation.
Yeah.
But
I think I was thinking along those lines, kind of 5-3, 5-4, kind of 4-2, that kind of range. So, it would be good. The day off is going to really help. Julio is day-to-day right now, so hopefully that extra day of rest really gets him back into the
I expect him to start on Friday.
Okay.
I would be shocked to see him out of the lineup again.
Yeah.
If anything, he's a DH, but I'd be shocked that if he doesn't play Friday or any other days. I think I truly think it's precautionary. He looks like he's in good spirits. If you guys all saw his video today, like I mentioned before, he posted about they were all dressed in Run DNC. The chemistry's there. I think they're all having fun. I think it's really precautionary. He should be fine.
Yeah. Well, then that's it for us today. Thank you for watching the Rundown Mariners post-game show. And I'm Joe. Again, this is Felipe. Once again, let us know in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe. What you guys think. Whether right, whether we're wrong. We'd love to hear it. But thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.